Well, welcome to the show. This is another one of these interviews, and I wish I could do more of them, but I don't. But when I do, they are pretty goddamn special. So this week's guest is an absolute honour to have on the show. Been a sound
Oh,
engineer, programmer, and a producer since 1985. An absolute soldier behind the scene from 90s onwards to today. Co-founded Ram Records and Liftin Spirits. Has released tracks under Origin Unknown, Ram Trilogy, Desired State, and way more than I can mention in one session. So it gives me great privilege to announce Mr. Ant Miles. Ant, how you doing?
hello, Jay, and thanks for having me on, man. It's a real
Mate,
honour to be on this show, man.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. It's great to have, like, there's a lot of people that I've spoken to that are at the forefront of the scene, and it's great to find, people like yourself who have played such a pivotal role over the years. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, in all honesty, I don't believe the scene would be where it is if it wasn't for yourself. There are obviously many people involved in it, but your contribution was pivotal, mate. So,
Well, thanks for saying that, man. I was just a little cog in a very big wheel, It is
yeah,
one
well,
big, wonderful community of many, many, many talented people, and I'm just proud to be involved with it.
nice, mate. Well, that's good. Well, look, how I like to start these off is I would love to kind of take it right back. I don't know what age you might have been, or if there was a moment where you heard a song or you were somewhere where your connection to music went from, oh, that's just something in the background to, hold on a minute,
Yeah.
something's going on there.
Well, as you can see from the grey hairs, I kind of go back quite a way. So if you go from the absolute TOP,
1985, I read an article in a magazine about the Atari ST, and because I didn't take a wage from my old dad, bless him, delivering kitchens and things, he bought us an Atari ST, and I bought Pro 24 software and a DX5. But as I said, the manual was in German, so version 1. So I couldn't understand a word of it. So a year goes by, and then the Akai S900 came out. This is when it got serious, because here was a sampler that didn't sound all hissy, and obviously was a milestone for our genre and all the music genres. And I went on a course in South London called Gateway. A guy called Dave Ward was running this course on MIDI. And so it was a week-long course and quite a few pounds as well, bless it. But by the end of that course, I had a lot more knowledge on MIDI, velocities, note on C3, C4, all that kind of thing. And that was the moment that blew my mind when I suddenly realised the equipment, what I've got and what it can do. With the sampler, it can sample obviously anything and sequence that. I mean, it was only a few years before that we were trying to suss out a Yamaha QX5 that had no screen on the sequencer at all. And here we are now with on-screen, GUI with MIDI capability that was Loctite. And so coming away from that Gateway course, I was all systems go now, And it became a hobby. I was sampling everything and anything that caught my ear on the TV. I must mention this because this changed my whole life, really, was this particular book. Sometimes a book will come along that you read and it just opens your mind up to all different things. But it became a bestseller. It's called Life After Life by Dr. Raymond Moody. And I think it first got released around 77. I got this book around the early 80s, and one day I was working in my dad's shop and I was reading the book. And it was all about this doctor that had noticed that people that had been clinically dead, that had been resuscitated, had tried to say the same kind of thing over and over again. And I found it absolutely fascinating. The more I read it, and the guy wasn't saying this is it, this is what happens when you die, but it rang true with me. And the more I read it, I became more and more engrossed in this theory that it is important what we do on this planet, and that there is hopefully something else after. And so there was a program coming on the telly. By now we've got the VHS recorder on QED. And it was called Glimpses of Death, and it was based on near-death experiences. And so I recorded this program, and I'm always, even today, I've got my ear always open for that sample of something, whether it's spoken word or a sound effect or anything from anywhere. And I was watching the telly, and then the lady came on that did the Long Dark Tunnel vocal. And I felt that was so profound. I thought, I'm sampling that. So this is 1986 that I actually sampled that.
That's
And,
crazy. That's
yeah,
crazy that it was that's 6-7 years before the track
yes,
came out.
Yes. But I became, from that book, I became very spiritually kind of minded, not religious, but just conscious of how I stomped around in the world, how I interacted with people. That I recommend the book to anyone that hasn't read it. It's a very, very well known book now. Of course, he actually did coin the phrase near death experience.
Wow.
So that, you know, for especially people that have lost people and stuff, it is some hope that there might be something else, that we do meet again, we do go on. This is one thing with the music, that you hope it's something you leave behind that can sort of stay around, and something to say you were here. But I recommend that. That was where the whole Valley of the Shadows came from, because one of the chapters, that bloke was saying that he died and was going down this tunnel, and he said, I won't fear the Valley of the Shadows of Death because I've been there.
Interesting.
And so when that year came around, that we had Valley of the Shadows running around, I said to Andy, I've got this great vocal that can fit it, and it fitted the meter of the rhythm of the track. I felt in the Long Dark Tunnel, it just fitted the beat, and the bell line. My ex-wife used to say that arpeggio bell line surrounded you. It was like a tunnel. But yeah, so that was how that came about. And a lot of my tunes, I've always tried to put something a little bit spiritual in there if I can, like cause and effect, concept 2, titles like that. Andy always gave me quite a free rein to come up with titles. But no, so let's wind it back a bit. So we're in the late 80s, and what happened now? So basically, we lost the lease on the recording studio, and we'd had a band come in called a big hit band in the 70s called the Rubettes. Sugar Baby Love, Jukebox Jive. They were big, for someone my age. We all knew who the Rubettes were, you know. Obviously, most of the listeners listening to this wouldn't have a clue who the Rubettes are now.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, well,
full
you
range
know,
of listeners.
At the end of the day, a producer came to the studio, and his claim to fame was that he did the music for the original Captain Scarlet theme tune. Anyway, so that was his claim to fame, and he knew the Rubettes and brought the Rubettes over, and I became quite good friends with them all, specifically Mick, the bass player. There's a lovely guy, Mick is. He'd always come and listen to what I was programming, and always said, "Man, that sounds great. It's a great groove," or whatever I was working on, and we discuss equipment and stuff that was always coming out every month. There was something new. But I became particularly close to Mick Clark, and anyway, the studio moved around the corner to Wants Road, and I think it's still there today near Dagenham East Station, East London. And the producer guy bought all the equipment that was originally my dad owned. My dad just sold it all to him. He couldn't wait to get rid of it. It was just a big money pit. And so the studio moved around the corner, and I kind of moved with them, of course. And I had a little programming suite up in the loft area. But over the years of working in there, we had different keyboard players come in. One of which was Ian Curnow. Ian Curnow was a tremendous keyboard player. He ended up working for Pete Stock Aitken and Waterman, done a lot of their stuff. And he used to give me lots of sounds as well, because back in those days, of course, it's all floppy disks. And funny enough, I think he gave me the floppy disk that was it was a PWM synth that I used on Valley of the Shadows. It was the only sound on that track that didn't come from the sample CD. So when people have tried to recreate it, it's that one sound that they just can't get right, you know. And it does tickle me that they have a pretty good go. People like Ian Curnow would come and give us samples, you know, and I'd also watch them, how they use the samplers and the filters and things, and learnt a lot. I was just soaking it all up all the time. I loved it. And shortly after that, the studio was starting to get into doing music for cartoons like Charlie Brown and things, and I had no interest in that. I was using the studio in dead time for my own band with Bone Shaker, known Rob Bone Shaker since we were 15, and we was in a band together. So we used to take advantage of the studio over night time. But in the end, I said to my mum, Dad, I don't want to make cartoon music. So they said, well, why don't we knock the big greenhouse down and we'll build you a little brick sort of setup in the garden?
It sounds like you've got such an amazing supportive family throughout this.
Yes, I did, you know, and all I can say is that I had 2 silver spoons in my mouth, and I was very, very lucky. I hoped I paid them back later in life when they both were dying. My mum had a hemorrhage stroke and was paralysed, and I used to do everything I could to look after her at home throughout that awful time. And then my dad went down with bad dementia, and so there was crazy things going on. I was trying to look after him as best I could. I hope they looked down on me, saying that I did my best for them. But no, I was very, very lucky. But I also loved explaining stuff. So one day, Mick Clark, I think, had borrowed a microphone from the studio, and I was tasked to go and get it back. And I also used to go around Mick Clark's a fair bit. And I could hear these break beats coming out from his little studio room around the corner in the house. I said, is that Andy? He said, yeah. I said, wow, I've got to go and say hello. And now Andy's about 15. I poked my head round the door and I said, bloody hell, Andy, that sounds amazing. Because, you know, I'd been mainly all about the Roland 909, you know, and drum machines and things. And that's the first time I really heard breaks playing, you know, spinning around 8 bars but layered, and I thought it was tremendous. I said to him, well, I've got a new studio around the corner. Why don't you, you know, bring it, all your gear, and come over and carry it on round mine? And he was up for that. So as he used to tell the story, I went round in my rascal van, picked him up with his S950, and hooked it up round mine, and off we went. You know, and we had the first record tune on in 1991.
What was that? Okay, so that was that 1990 that you moved in the studio? Okay.
Yeah. So I moved into my own studio in 1990. It's quite a big little, quite a big place, to be fair. It's about 50 foot, but 15 foot, something like that. And because we built the studio in Dagenham, we knew about soundproofing, the Rockwall, the Hessian, you know, beading and everything. So we were able to soundproof it with double doors that sealed and that, and got it soundproofed as best we could. So from that knowledge, you know, the studio, it was quite a nice little setup, to be fair.
So you were mostly working with bands, but obviously it sounds like the skill level is increasing. You're meeting more kind of band guys. So was
Yes,
was 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 meeting and listening to what Andy did, that kind of open the doors then to hearing
yes,
what was going on in the
absolutely,
scene, right?
absolutely. And at the same time, um, I had a very close friend from school that had his own record label already up and running, Strategy Records, again in Hornchurch, of course. And I was round his house when the distributor turned up to pay him. And I see him write him a check for £3,000 or whatever it was. And at the time, I had no money at all. And my wife was pregnant. And we were desperately short of money. But I watched him write the check and I was like, Geese, can I get that guy's phone number? He was like, yeah, no problem at all. So we got Jumpstart's phone number. And so he became our distributor. And yeah,
So did you self-release then the first Desired State?
no. So that first Turn On tune, for some strange reason, we knew someone called Lance that ran a label called Karma Records, and when you're starting out, you want to play the stuff to everyone for feedback, and we played it to Lance. I can't even remember how that came about. He ended up hearing it and said, I'll put it out on Karma Recordings. And, okay, so it went out on his label. Anyway, for some reason, I don't know what happened, but we never got no money from that. And then we did another one, Dance the Dream. Andy went to Ibiza and came back from there. It's like, mate, I've got this idea for a big tune, piano riff. It's all about piano. So I was like, okay. So it's 1992, and we made the track Dance the Dream. And we ended up putting that out with, I think, George Kelly on One Tribe. And that did okay. We did a remix, and then I'd been visiting a place called Selector Sound for tape. It was a shop it was more like a house stroke shop in Romford that we used to buy our Ampex tape from for the recording studio. 2-inch tape, 1/4-inch tape. And I'd become quite pally with the bloke that owned it, John. And he'd often say, my son Paul's doing quite well with his label out at Romford. And so every time I went round there, I was like, how's Paul getting on? And he'd say, he's doing very well. He's just sold quite a lot of his latest record and stuff. So I at Romford was already going, as well as Strategy. And so we did a remix of Dance the Dream and put it out at Romford. And that did quite well, to be fair. Kiss FM playlisted it. We had our first review from Groove Rider, which proper thrilled us, it did, to see Groove Rider comment in a magazine on it. But
Got to give a shout out to Paul Schmales, top guy.
Man, what a lovely guy he is. I was out for a drink with him only the other day, of course. And Chris Nightfalls, I mean, he's the main don. I can't thank that guy enough for doing what he's done for not only out of Romford, but for me as well. So big shout to Chris.
Yeah, every time.
Every time, man. But it's so let's try and wheel it back. So yes, 92. So I think Andy's mum has said to him, look, you've got to get a job, you're 16 now, you're going to have to do something. And so he devised the name Ram, which is his air sign, Ram Aries. And his sister Sarah drew the logo on I think it was on a serviette or something, or first go, whatever. But yeah, suddenly Andy had this record. It's like, I don't know if I've been on it or something. Sam Mash EP, 92. And okay, so he goes, this is something we can get behind. And it's us. Fantastic. And so off we went. Ram was born. It was a platform for me and him to do whatever we wanted and control it ourselves. As much as we'd had help from Strategy with Desired State, Dating and Dive In, and Desired State, Dance the Dream on Out of Romford. It was great to have our own label to to push ahead with. So that's how RAM came about. So it's really Andrew's label,
Yeah.
but you know, I fully got behind it. I got us with a decent accountant. In fact, it was the same accountant I think Ronnie Size used up in Bristol. So we had a good music accountant, we had a good lawyer, we had we had good friends as well at PPL and PRS that would. I mean, it's what forms like. What do I do with these forms? I'm on the phone. So what do I do with this pink form? And so we became
It's
quite
no
good
different
friends.
now, 30 years
No,
later.
it is so difficult, isn't it? For anyone starting out, it's like, what do I do? But back then, anyone, is reachable on the phone, really. We're only people, you know, and it's like, you know, what do I do? I said, right, in that top box, you've got to put the world. Okay, the world. What do I do next? You know, now you've got to put down the shares. Right, all right. So eventually, I picked up more and more knowledge, made sure all the tracks were registered. We had a good accountant, a good lawyer. Everything's legit, you know, and it became ready to go, you know, and because the last thing you want is the taxman chasing after you. Anyway, so 92, we made round 2, Eastern Promise EP, and we didn't. It was an EP, and we'd sampled a few things and stuff, and at the time we weren't sure about it. We got it to white label, but Andy had a much better thing for round 3, which was I think the Bass Logic EP, and
I
so
think, you know, from my experience, I mean, obviously it's interesting hearing you say that because obviously, like, Desired State was very much a kind of piano-led thing, but then Sound Mash EP and then the sort of release 2 and 3 were definitely a bit more darker. These were the kind of things that like Ratty and those guys were playing.
yes, yes,
What is that? You know, because what's interesting is that obviously if you look at 92 as a kind of where it started and where it ended up, you know, tempo wise, it went from sort of 130 up to 160. So there's a
yes,
phenomenal leap in tempos, but obviously as
yes,
styles as well. There was a lot of piano stuff, there was acid stuff, but there was a lot of bleepy stuff was kind of just fading out from 91. But then
yeah.
obviously the more kind of jungle sound was coming in. Were you conscious of that? Was that a conversation? Like, do you recall sort of how that went?
And Andy fed me the tunes of the moment. I mean, my daughter was only not long born. She was 1 year old, and it went on before my son was on his way as well. So, I mean, I'd spend most of the time working in the studio, preparing sounds, learning stuff, getting updates, which you had to get through the post in those days, and learning yeah.
Nuts, isn't
It is, looking back. But I was very much locked in the studio, and when I finished, I had to go home to help the wife, of course, because anyone that's got small children will tell you how stressful it is, and she couldn't wait for me to get home to help. So things like becoming a DJ, it just weren't on the menu for me. You know, I was already gone all day.
What about like, did you get a chance to, because obviously at this point, like sort of throughout 92, your tunes are getting played like pretty regularly. Like you'd be say, obviously Valley of the Shadows was played probably every night in pretty much every town across the world. But, you know, 92, did you have an opportunity to get to any of the nights at all?
Yeah, well, we had a good relationship with Boogie Times in Romford, the record shop, our local record shop. And Andy got on very well with Danny Breaks and Winston and Danny Donnelly, of course, and was often in there and buying vinyl and listening to what was coming out. And we made the touch, and to start with, and then Origin Unknown came about. It was something I noticed on one of the films. I think it was 2010. Start of the film 2010. It was about the monolith, and it was like what happened to Dave Ballman Unknown, and there's a monolith Origin Unknown, and so that's where the name come from. But we felt just to Desired State was meant to be more the hardcore completely piano, whereas we were going to focus Origin Unknown as a different act for the different sound that was evolving, that was coming in. Having said that, the touch was a big amen thing anyway. So we'd made the touch over about a week, and then we had some leftover samples in the sampler that we hadn't used. And a new update had come for the S1000 that you could time stretch. And so we sussed that out. And of course, as most people know, that most of the sounds for Valley of the Shadows came off the Future Music CD. I'd get sounds from anywhere. You give me it, I'd sample the hell out of it. The bell line originally went on and on and on in a very long arpeggio. And I heard the start point when I was listening to it. If I started there, I think I can get it around 160 BPM. So I'd already sampled the bell line. Obviously, the vocal 31 seconds came from the same place as well. But yeah, it was quite good fun because we'd always try and get something finished for the Friday. On the Friday, then Andy could go up to Music House, cut the dub plates, and be playing it that weekend after time. Because he'd already started DJing by 16, 17. And he was always a very good DJ. I couldn't mix bloody cake, I can tune the loops up in the sampler, no problem, and get them bang on. But for 2 records, I hats off to people like yourself and that, because I can hear that one's going out of time with the other, but which one it is, I couldn't tell you. And then I'm gonna nudge the wrong one. Now it's a complete clanging mess, you know what I mean? It's like, but looking back, it wasn't the career move. The best choice was a career move, but I was never meant to be a DJ.
But you know what? The history has shown time and time again, right, that some of the most successful acts are often duos, and one is just an absolute kind of studio nut and knows their way around everything and is creative and technical at the same time, and then the other person is out in the field getting the feedback, hearing what's going on, and you get that pairing right, and clearly you guys had that amazing relationship.
I mean, Andy's very, very, very intelligent guy, very, very clever. He soaked up all that information. I mean, as I said, I love explaining stuff, but you only needed to tell him once. And very early on, he didn't really need me anymore. He was fantastic on it. And it was a case of we were pushing each other with ideas. But so yeah, he started time stretching up the hot pants break, and let's time stretch it 50%. Let's try it 75%. And he started layering them together, and he got that shuffle effect going on. And again, I love things that go off on a tangent when you're just trying things out. All of a sudden, you've got a tune going without realising it. And Nick Coda had told me back in the late 80s, the best bass sound is just a pure sine wave. And of course, the Akai, when you first turned it on, had a pure sine wave and a pulse wave and a square wave as you turned it on. So I said, let's just use that because it's the warmest, most pure bass line there is, bass sound there is.
Yeah. And
of course, we threw on the arpeggio bell line, and that was working with the shuffle. So I think all in all, that track pretty much wrote itself. It literally fell out of the computer. I mean, we've told the story 1,000 million times.
Yeah.
It's 4 hours, and
that's bonkers.
Right near the end, I said, I think I've got this vocal that would fit well, and that's when I managed to find it out of 100 floppies. Oh, here it is, QED, right, bung that in. And he called me, I think, we finished it the Friday, and he called me on a Sunday, which was rare in those days. We had like a Monday, Friday thing, of being together continuously working, and then the weekends were off, both of us doing family, friend things. But he called me on a Sunday afternoon, and I played, because I called it Valley of the Shadows straight away. I was thinking of the tunnel, Long Dark Tunnel, of Psalm 23. And he said, I played Valley last night. He said, absolutely smashed it. Kicked out and got wheeled up like 3 times 4. I was like, did it? And the thing was, we'd we'd gone to Boogie Times for what their vibes was. It was like, we don't know whether to put The Touch as the A side or Valley as the B side. What do you think? And Danny Blake said, yeah, I think go with The Touch as the A side because the other one's a bit different, isn't it? It was like, yeah, okay. So yeah, it ended up as a B side.
Which
But
is
yeah,
funny because like, if you look at Your Love on the Prodigy EP, that was, I think it was track B2. That was on the B side and the second track as well.
yeah, it's, you know, you can never know. You know, all you can do is try, as Steve Jobs said once, you just push that bubble on the universe and try and make a dent. You know, and that's all we're ever trying to do is make a creation, you know, and get it out to the world and start on the next thing, you know. But I had no idea it would sell and sell and sell and sell. In fact, the distributor couldn't handle it, so we had to say goodbye to Jumpstart, and we moved to SRD, who I'm with now to this day. SRD,
Wow.
so, yeah, and SRD were already looking after Moving Shadow and various probably suburban based labels like that. And Rob Playford became a massive pillar to our story. He was often on the phone with Andy asking him questions. What should we do about this, that, something else? And Rob was very, very forthcoming with advice, something I'm eternally grateful for with Rob. And of course, releasing tracks like Inner City Life and Goldie in that was tremendous. Moving Shadow and Suburban Bass, two of the biggest labels at the time. And often that we had a couple of decks in the studio, and Andy would often come over with the latest vinyl. Ever since we started working together, and how about this? And I think, God, that's amazing. I mean, I think I was writing out a list of some of my top tunes that have proper, you know, shook me, proper making me goosebumps over that era. I've got 1991 with the horn track. What have I got for 92?
Stone Cold classic, that one.
Johnny L, Hurt You So for 92. But 93 was when it really took off for not only us, but the genre. There's that jungle sound splitting from that happy hardcore kind of sound. And I do love happy hardcore. I love some of the tunes you play on the show. And but when it started to break away in the jungle in 93 was when it really got exciting for us. Obviously with Tunnel coming out, it kind of fitted it at the time as well.
I mean, that was
many great tunes in 93.
I mean, you've got to say, like, Valley of the Shadows, right? I put a pretty safe bet on that is probably the most played jungle tune ever. I mean, I remember I was going out, you know, I was hearing Hype. Hype was played. Hype went for a period where he played it as his second tune at every set. Whenever you got a tape pack, it was first tune.
Anyone on this planet, he really did. And of course, Kev started coming over quite a bit, Hype, and he'd bring his dog Snoop with him. And my mum would sometimes come in with cheese on toast. And yeah, there's a pit bull running around the garden, do you know? Yeah, that's all right. It's Hype's dog Snoop, you know. But Kev come over to the studio quite a lot, and Randall as well. And of course, I mean, I ran the labels best I could. I literally handwrite the envelopes to send the records out to the list, the Elite, the Brockies, the Groove Riders, LSD, anyone who got a record from around back in them days around it, and it was me. And my tongue would be like leather with the amount of stamps I had to lick, you know. Hang on a minute, what? You can buy a little dish that you put the stamps in, you know. What amount of stamps I used to have to put on. But no, I did it all. And of course, I knew the names of everybody, but I could never really put a face to it. And it became a problem for me because by around 94, 95, I should be knowing who some of my peers are, you know. I mean, obviously, I knew Randall and Hype very well and stuff, but I found it that if I was to go out, I used to go a few nights when the wife would let me, And then, I might be standing next to someone that I should know. And I used to feel a bit arrogant that I didn't know that I was actually standing next to DJ X, and I started getting a bit conscious about it. And so I don't know, it's one of the things that bothered me when I went out, that I should be knowing people and stuff. But no, we used to go to the Ram nights were tremendous. I can remember hearing Valley in the end, and most of the tunes these days are like in F, 30 hertz, G. I think Tunnel was in A sharp, something like that. And I can remember listening to it in the end, and the way that bass went through your chest, I felt lovely. It was like I didn't realise that was a sweet spot for that particular tune. It just went right through us, and it sounded
How
nice.
would you, out of interest, how would you test like tracks that you'd made? Obviously, I know various producers have different kind of things. Someone would put them onto a CD or whatever, listening to on their DVD player through their TV speakers in the car, go wherever.
Yeah.
Did you have a bit of a process for your tunes?
I did. Essentially, once I put the kids to bed, I'd go in the garage and have a cigarette and a few beers, and I had a blaster box out in the garage, and because I never smoked in the house, the wife didn't smoke, and of course, so I played the tune that we've been working on that day, gradually getting more and more drunk, having a fag, drunk, and I suddenly think, right, that bit's got to go there, that bit's got to go there, that bit's crap, that bit, that's good at the end, that's got to come forward. So when I went into the studio at 9 a.m. the next morning, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, because I was able to distance myself from the tune by listening to it on a cassette in the garage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the other thing was, of course, Andy would be cutting a dub. He'd bring the dub back to the studio on the Monday, and we'd do an A and B and see how the cut came out. And that would give us a rough idea of how the mix was. I remember when we made Truly One, we got the dub plate back, and Andy weren't happy with it at all. It didn't sound punchy or loud. And we went back in on that and totally mixed it back down again, totally different. We only had the one compressor. We had it's called a DBX 1066.
Okay, yeah.
It's a limiter and a compressor. And I always knew from the studio days that you just have a tiny bit of compression, tiny bit of limited. That was the rule. And we got it a lot better. And then Andy cut through the one again, and when it came back, it was, no comparisons, a load better. And so we used to grow and get the mixes right through dub plates, as well as me listening to it in the garage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of worked out quite well. But no, Leon was tremendous. He'd accommodate everybody. In fact, the tracks became like currency. They'd all meet at Music House and say, "What have you got?" And Dillinger's there, or Shy FX is there. I could give you this if you give us that, and that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It became almost like swapping trump cards, but
a lot more expensive trump cards.
Yeah, but it was a family. It still is a family. Everybody knew everybody. Do you know what I mean? And often Andy walk in and say, right, Shy FX wants us to do a remix, or Goldie wants to do us a remix or something like that. And he came in once and said, right, we've got this job opportunity to do a remix with this rapper in America called Busta Rhymes. And he was kind of new to the UK in '96. So, okay, send the track over. And of course, hip hop is almost half-time to what speed we were working on in '96. And Wuha got you all in check, if anyone wants to check it out. And bloody hell, this is amazing, this is great. And it was a little tricky. It wasn't quite half of 165, whatever we were working on. So I had to play in some of the things again. But that went down quite well. I think we got the runner-up remix of the year with music, in music magazine, was it? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
We lost out to the Elvis Presley remix thing.
Wow.
But that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean? A little more action guaranteed thing. You
You
know,
don't mind taking second place or something
no,
like that.
that's all right. You know, but it was great to attach our name to such a big American artist. And shortly after that, Jay-Z hit us up for a remix. Can't Knock the Hustle. That was an honour as well. But we always took the remixes very, very seriously. We play the original to death and think, like, how can we take this further and do justice to the original?
Yeah.
Warhead, tracks like that were already massive tunes, you know, and it was a bit of a task as well because of how big those tunes were. But we'd always we'd spend more thought and effort on remixes than we would our own stuff. If I'm perfectly honest, we took a lot of pride in doing the remixes. Did a lot really. I can't think of someone we didn't remix for really, but that was all Andy meeting people, you know, and do you want to remix so and so? Yeah, I'd love to, you know, and getting the sounds to them as well, you know. Like Time Stretch, you on these sides, it's like, oh wow, we've got the sound that makes that sound. It's all separate, you know, what you call the stems today, but they were just single samples, you know, and it was amazing to hear them all separate.
Yeah.
But it was a family, a very it's a wonderful community of the era that we're talking about. The 90s. It was a great time for me as well. I was loving every day.
Yeah, I'll bet, mate. So obviously you also had the sub-label Lifting Spirits. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that came about.
Okay.
What story was there?
Yeah. So I remember I was fairly early on with the stress of the home life and stuff that my marriage wasn't going like I'd hoped, and I felt very down. In fact, I often put my head on Andy's shoulder, if you know what I mean. A few too many times I might add. But one phone call, I was particularly down, and you know, he said, "No, you don't understand. You know, people loved, you know, Valley of the Shadows. They loved Truly One, or whatever it was." And I was like, "Oh man, thanks." I said, "You proper lifted my spirit." And I walked in the house after the phone call. I thought, "That's not a bad name, Lifting Spirit." And I
You've
thought, you
clearly
know
got
what?
a great knack for coming up with names of tracks and labels, haven't you?
Well, I don't know about that because I made a silly mistake of having the artist name as Lifting Spirits and the label was Lifting Spirit, and everybody gets it round the wrong way. It was, and then an apostrophe or not an apostrophe. Oh God!
I
mean,
think I've
I
got it
don't
wrong, and I
know.
would have got it right. I've got, but
Yeah.
it's on the back. I can't see.
Oh, so, yeah, I have made a few goofs in my time. I think Andy Shimon would agree to that. But whether or not I should have had so many aliases was another thing as well. Because at the time, it was only me and Andy to start with, and we didn't want to keep having it as Ant and Andy, Ant and Andy, Ant and Andy. So we'd come up with maybe another alias like Concept 2 or, you know, something else. Do you know what I mean? Like Lifting Spirits or High Sense. And just to try and sort of break it up a bit. But so we had so many tracks half done that the more Andy was becoming a successful DJ, the more he was gone from the studio. So I'd just be carrying on regardless. And I thought, well, let's start my own label, Lifting Spirit, which I like the name of. And so I made Giggle and Mush tune. Got it again. It's like round 2. I got it to white label, put it out, and didn't actually come with it fully, like a full proper release. But I always had my door open. You know, I love working with whoever and bouncing, mixing heads with various different people because everyone's a producer. Everyone's got an idea of what sound they like and what they don't like. And I find that quite intriguing. And I'd often say, look, you want to make a tune, get some samples together, or choose, you know, wherever they're going to come from, records, whatever, cassette, gather them together. I want some kind of atmospheric sound, I want a good vocal, I want a this and that, a cappella, whatever. Collate some samples, come over and spend a day together. And of course, Flatliner came over in '95 through Outer Romford, because he knows the Outer Romford people, and also Andy's mate Scott, Red One, came over and made a tune in a day. But and Ivan Kicking, that come out really great. But these are sounds I wouldn't have had. Do you know what I mean? And it was crazy. I love working with Scott, and then Shimon came on in Predator in '94. And I'm quite happy to take a back seat, you know what I mean? It was just like, let's try it this way. What do you think of this? Do you like it this way? Do you like it that way? And let's see what we can do with this pad sound. Let's take it backward, forwards, loop it in and out of rafters and back, you know. And the tunes came together very, very. If I had the sounds all ready to go, quite often we'd do a track in a day.
Wow.
But we had a lot of tunes around, and Scott's Red One's mate, DJ Rhythm, they're all part of Syndicate FM. Wanted to make a tune. I said, yeah, let's. And Steve come over, and of course he brought some tremendous sounds. And in a day we had Cold Fresh Air going around, and that's a classic example of that jungle. One of the jungle tricks of that era was that you've got a pad sound that's playing a chord and you've got it looping. You play the two notes together, like maybe a fifth, first and fifth. One's doing a different loop to the other one. So that's creating an effect within itself.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I achieved with Cold Fresh Air. And that was the time when I actually got an artist to design us some logo ideas. And I got a proper sleeve done for that. I had a choice of about 20 different logos, and I saw the L lifting the S, and I thought, I like that, the L lifting the S. So yeah, Lifting Spirit was born '94, and for a while, Ram and Lifting Spirit were kind of in parity, so to speak. Stacker and KT sent us demos from Brighton, and I loved those. And, yep, come over, bring everything, and we pulled them about quite a bit, but they come out really, really good. And so we had Stacker and KT on Lifting Spirit, Red One. So for quite a while, Lifting Spirit and Ram were, as I say, in parity. But when we made The Big Bang, which is a track in '95 with Flatliner, Andy particularly liked that one. And he said, I'd like that for Ram. Okay. And I think it was from that point, bearing in mind Valley of the Shadows was already on Ram, that I went all in on Ram, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
Anything that was like real smashing it that Andy really liked was getting a reaction. If he wanted it would go on Ram. So Lifting Spirit became more of a safety net, catching tracks that weren't quite that level, but were good enough to go out. So that's how my Lifting Spirit was born.
Yeah, nice. And with what was the first track that you'd released as a solo artist in that scene? Was it as Iconic? Was it?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing there was that that's before we left Jumpstart Distribution and went with SRD. Martin said, I want to start a label called Deep 7. And if you've got any tunes that you've done that you don't really want to put out, I'll put them out in Deep 7 and sort you out after. Yeah, okay, all right. So we gave them a few what I call ones that we weren't sure about.
Yeah.
You know, and so they went out as well, but we didn't really want to put our name to it at the time. But I came up with some nice names like Cunning and Philosophers, deliberately spelled wrong, I might add. So Deep 7, my first solo thing, God, I don't know, I can't really think. 95, 96. Anything that I go in, as soon as, because we had the office at the studio as well, so Andy would always be coming to the office to sort out the DJ, the interviews or license deals, whatever were coming down the pipe. So he was always around and eventually would hear whatever I'm working on, and if he wanted to jump on it, he'd always get it a million times better. And I was always jump on it, you know. In fact, it works out quite well, really, the partnership. I'd take the kids to school at 9 in the morning, I'd load up what we had the other day, and I'd carry on throughout the day, and then Andy'd probably come over about 3 o'clock, maybe 2 o'clock, and then take over from me because I'd be kind of exhausted by then, do you know what I mean? I'd just crash out on the settee and let Andy pick up the reins, and then it's really a one-man job, but after a while you get tired and Hello, Siri's popping up, so hello again. And yeah, so it was good, you know. He'd get exhausted. What do you reckon then? I said, right, okay, I'm gonna make some intro, you know, or something, and get the thing on the go. But Andy was very perfectionist. He'd quite happily spend an hour or 2 hours on a 1 bar drum fill with trills and filters and things, just 1 bar, you know. But I used to admire that perfectionist. I was very much a case that'll do, you know. That I'm still like that today. But no, anything Andy touched would literally turn to gold. You know, he really did have the drive to get it perfect. In fact, sometimes in the old days, the Atari would crash, or the floppy disk didn't load up. We'd lost the lock, and I'd be punching a hole in the door. Meanwhile, he's quite calmly loading all the sounds, and he would start it from scratch, and he would get a very complicated conga thing and everything back to exactly how we had it, you know. But no, it was a wonderful partnership, you know. But obviously, he got more and more successful, and it took him more and more away from the studio. That he's often on the plane, like he is these days. He's nearly always up in the air on the plane. I don't know how he does it all the time. You know. It's you've got to admire the drive, the passion that he has for drum and bass. It'll be remembered for decades to come. It's truly I was very, very lucky. And sometimes in life, you know, you have an opportunity to do something or an invite. It's always worth saying yes to anything, because you never know what might transpire from that, you know. But I love working with anyone that would want to sit with us and work. And we built up quite a little family, as we called it. Going on towards the end of the 90s, I mean, we did the Speed of Sound LP in 96, Lunar Bass, tracks like that. That's when the logo changed, because it had been the logo that his sister Sarah had drawn. But we had a tremendous artist for that album, Speed of Sound. And we put out Valley of the Shadows on a CD, and we'd come up with 2 R's back to back, because eventually we took the spines away from the R, the 2 R's, which left like a ram head, and that became the new logo from the 1990s.
Nice.
That's how that came about.
Yeah.
And that really worked. And I remember seeing that artwork for the first time, absolutely blown away. I loved it. And the radar just showing the logo coming in. Oh, it's tremendous. And it was a bloody good out. I think that we often look back when we're having a beer and we said, what year did we think was the best? And we both said 96, 95, 96. We was really on fire around that time. And really perfecting what we'd learned, you know, by then. But in reality, only a small amount of time had gone past. It felt like a decade to me, but really, 91, 92, now we're in 96, only 4 years.
Yeah, right.
But we had progressed quite a lot, and got a few, you know, tunes under our belt, and remixes and stuff, connections. It cascades into more and more contacts.
And I guess your studio has evolved, because obviously there was that change from MIDI to digital, you know, through that period as well. So what was going
I
on?
went into that kicking and screaming. I remember it was around 1999 that Cubase SX1 came out, and Contact, and I love Native Instruments. So in fact, I was sponsored by them for quite a long time until they got bought out by Isotope recently. But I had one track running. I think it was Diane Charlemagne I was working with, bless her.
Wow.
I was working with Diane on a track called Tear It Up on Liftin Spirit. And it might have been that one. Anyway, I've duplicated what was going on in the samplers in the analog world and the mixer in digital, purely in Cubase with contacts, copying the EQ settings, the filters, everything. And then when I did an A to B, it just sounded fucking terrible. I was like, it's no guts, and it was like, without a doubt, analog is a lot warmer and more presence and everything, you know. But I did go into the digital world kicking and screaming. I did want to. In fact, looking back, I wished I'd stayed in the analog world, really, because around '99, you know, we were getting a great sound, a great cut on vinyl. If it ain't broke, you know. But of course, people like Zinc, Ben, was just taking a laptop to a swimming pool and making an album by a swimming pool, which that caught my attention. You know, that you can actually make the whole tune on a laptop now, and it was obviously the way to go for everybody. So off we went into the digital world, but around 2000, 2001, just weren't happy with the mix downs. We had obviously Nick come on board, Sub Focus with Airplane, and what a great mix. And I played what I've got going, and what bloody, there's no comparison. You know, so you end up doing mix number 99, you know, and then comparing it. But Nick had been to college, he'd studied it and stuff, and knew about summing and everything else, and was getting a tremendous mix down. And so the loudness war started. And I think it became ridiculous. I mean, towards the end, it weren't a waveform anymore. It was just a blue bar.
Yeah, right. digital sausage, as they call it.
Yeah, exactly. And I really suffered with that. And to be honest, it was one of the reasons why I took some time out. Around 2002, my marriage had come to an end, and it turned into a very acrimonious divorce, which ended up, I lost a lot, really. Everything I've kind of worked for ended up in the lawyer's pockets, as divorces do.
Yeah.
But I took around that time, 2002, I said to Andy, I can't do it anymore. And Scott came over and took over from me. And Scott was very astute. He wasn't a drinker, a smoker, nothing, and obviously did a tremendous job bringing in Chasing Status, obviously Sub Focus, Wilkinson, all these acts that came on board that's just sent Ram into orbit. Done a tremendous job, but I kind of sort of stumbled around. I was more looking after the children, if I'm perfectly honest, or helping my mum look after the children. Because I ended up with custody. But you know, I was in the wilderness. I did a track called "Soak It Up" in 2005. Maybe there's a couple of other tracks I can't place right now, but not an awful lot. And then in 2007, I did my first LP, which was a Visitations LP. I found loads of dates of where people had visited the studio, like Moving Fusion and Shimon and various people. And I just sort of finished them off, really, and got them over and said, yeah, I just want to come and finish this track off. And I did my first album for Liftin Spirit. Did quite well, to be fair. Yeah, that was 2007. I'm trying to think. I did write down some notes because my memory's not as good as it used to be. That's the thing.
To be honest, you've been pulling names of keyboards and guitar players out, no problem at all.
Well, now I'm starting to struggle, but yeah. So I kind of stopped. I did resign from Ram because I didn't want to get it caught up in the divorce and stuff, and I just took it as a time to really sit back. And my son did say to me once, he was about 5 or 6 when he used to poke in his head round the studio door. He said, "Dad," yeah, so, "why do you keep making the same tune all the time?" Beep, 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 beep. That's a classic. Oh, bless him. He's doing really well now, my boy. He's a music accountant up the city, and he heads a department called they're called letter Y royalties. And he specialises in claiming lost royalties for big artists.
Nice.
Yeah, then we've got Siri saying hello.
Siri's been very chatty. She really wants to get involved in this conversation, doesn't she?
She does. Yeah, it's a
So what got you back into the music? Because obviously, you know, there's a good bit to talk about
Yeah.
you know, Return of Liftin Spirit and and
Yeah,
remix them from yourself?
yes, of course. I didn't really talk about much about Round Trilogy because that happened towards the end of the 90s.
Of course, yeah, with Shimon on board.
Shimon had already been coming to the studio. He came for Predator, of course, and then he made. Once I sort of shown him the kind of the ropes and stuff, he got his own equipment at his house and made Quest with Andy, and that what a phenomenal tune that was.
Yeah, right.
Um, Around '97, he had a very bad go-karting accident. He crashed his go-kart and broke his leg badly. But they made it worse by how they lifted him out of the go-kart. His leg nearly came off. Anyway, to say he was now a Meccano set was an understatement. But he was in a lot of pain, obviously, with all pins and bolts and stuff. And I said, no, let's get you over mine. Come over every day. I'll come and get you. I'll set you up your cushions and stuff and just make tune after tune together. And so that's what we did. We started to make Mind Overload and Scanners, and Andy would come on board. And I was out with Mum and Dad once having dinner. I said, I need an act name for me, Andy, and Shimon. And it was my dad. He went, how about Ram Trilogy? I said, that's bloody brilliant. The story of feet, brilliant. Loved that. So that was it straight away. Come from my dad. But so from now we were free, you know, and boy, whereas I've been looking at manuals and things, Shimon chuck the manual out the window. I don't care what the manual says. I'm doing distortion. I'm doing this, and half the time me and Andy like, wait, stop, that sounds amazing, you know, but he keeps changing it. Now we just lost what we loved a minute ago. So, but he just mind melded with that sampler that he knew. He just tremendous sounds. And of course, I was good with the atmospherics and building intros and things. And Andy was great with the drums. He was all round good at everything, bless him. But we were a great threesome in working together. And then, you know, No Reality came about. I remember hearing that down the end when it was brand new. Boy, the reaction that got, I was like, wow. And, you know, success is always best served shared. And that's something I truly believe, you know. And it's really good to have something that really sort of kicks up like that one does. And we ended up doing so many tunes. We done Molten Beats LP 99, something like that. Chase Scene, another track that Shimon had started. And then wherever I could, I tried to play guitar on it as well. So we go away. And I got a guitar that's got a special bridge on it, made by Roland, called the GK2, that links up to a synthesizer. So it's very accurate as well. You play the chords and the synth comes out. And where I could, I used it on many tracks of ours, like Titan, Beastman, and that's all this synth guitar. One time the guitar fell over, and we sampled the noise of it when it fell over, because I will keep a DAT machine in record. I learned a long time ago that it's a good idea to have a DAT machine just recording everything going on, because you might make that sound by accident, and what was that? You know, do that again. Well, I can't, you know, I don't know what you want. But with the DAT going, you know, in fact, we became very good friends with the music shop around the corner, PMT. And we bought loads of stuff from them, mate. We got a Christmas card from them once saying thanks for the new house, you know. It was a joke, of course. But any synth that come out, they say, yeah, come and get this synth, just try it out, see if you want it. And so we'd get some of these synths, and I'd just sample the hell out of it, play all different riffs and stuff, and I don't quite like this synth. Got another one. There'd be occasions where we did have a synth that we loved, like the Novation Bass Station, and I put the DAT machine in record, and I'm just playing the key, twisting all the things, and then I'd go back and then play the DAT into the computer, sampling the bits that sounds that I like. And one of the bass sounds we used for Titan, that was a crazy sound, you know, and bass number 43 that was, to give you some idea of how many edits I had to do to get to that one.
Wow.
So a lot of work did go into them, you know. It didn't all happen just magically, you know. There was a lot of learning, a lot of experimentation, a lot of seeing what stuck, you know. But
Did you find it harder as you know, technology evolved and there was more going on? Obviously, there's a
yes,
simplicity about a MIDI setup, and
yes,
there's only a certain amount of
yes,
keyboards, but then you're obviously limited creatively
yeah,
from that.
absolutely. I mean, you know, we had a Mackie 24 desk to start with, and we just knew it. You know, we could know when we could make that bass, that 909, 808 bass distort at the right point. We knew the mixing desk very well. And after that, we had the Mackie, the digital Mackie. It was still analog, but remembered the mix. That was a good desk. But no, when it went all digital, it was a new science entirely. And as I say, I went kicking and screaming into it. I mean, I'm obviously in it all the time now. But the one thing I should have done back then, which was what I do now, is have it professionally mastered.
Right.
There are people like Bob Mack that does all of our stuff, that masters, that does it for a living, that knows the compression, the dynamics. There can be a professional pair of ears to get that tune sounding nice and loud and up, rather than us doing, right, let's do bounce number 1002. Do you know what I mean? And,
Yeah, right.
by the end of all that, you hate the bloody tune. You've heard it so much. So yeah, I should have used a professional master back in the day rather than trying to do it ourselves. And I take my hat off to Nick and James Culture Shock and people that are getting fantastic mixes. I remember the first real one that really blew me and Bone Shaker away was the Pendulum. I mean, there's been several tunes that have come that have, in my mind, changed the scene.
Yeah.
Alex Freese, Pulp Fiction. You know, again, as I say, the Pendulum album, when that landed, that changed the scene entirely. It became about 200 hertz snares, loud mixes, breaks become a thing in the background. The scene kind of changed, as it's no doubt going to do in the future. It's always evolving. And as a new synth like Massive would come out, all of a sudden you've got a new genre, dubstep, you know, in my mind probably influenced a lot by that particular synth, whereas today's drum and bass is more coming from Serum synths and Vital and synths, VSTs like that can really screech. No, it's going to evolve and continue to evolve. But the 90s was a magical era. When I look at some of the tunes I just put on a notepad, some of the ones that gave me goosebumps. I mean, it's funny you had Pete Parsons on the other day, because if I was to say what is Ant Miles' favourite ever drum and bass tune, it'd be Spiritual Aura. That intro, it's the most emotion building, affecting the track of all of them out there, you know. Spiritual Aura, I fucking loved that tune. And the way it dropped as well, tremendous. And also Foul Play, Being With You. I had the pleasure of working with Steve Gurley for Libero Blanco. Tremendous talent, so much talent. And tracks like that, Renegade Snares, that era of tunes is just. I was watching, as I said, a set that Stranger was playing, and I watched it on YouTube, and it started out kind of neuro, growling basses, moderny, but it quickly kind of evolved into jungle, and he was getting more of a reaction with the jungle. I think he says it in the actual comments on his own video that, you know, I played a drum and bass set and they wanted jungle. But it was such a wonderful, creative, emotional era of music.
Yeah.
That people like yourself are championing once again and keeping going and reminding the new generation of what that era was, because incredible. I mean, what have I wrote down here? Oh man, you know, big tunes that changed the scene. Bad Company, The Nine.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that when I heard that down the end, I was like, oh my god, that is just tremendous. You know,
That was the first time I heard that tune down there, because
yeah, because we were down there. I think we played the last Christmas, didn't we, in
yeah, we
2008?
did indeed.
We were
Yeah,
both in. Yes,
yeah,
I can remember that getting played that particular night. God, did
That's
it
what,
sound good?
2008 was that? Maybe it closed. I
Uh,
started playing. I think I started playing there about 2004. I was there for about 4 years.
Came out 1999. That tune. So it'd been out a few
Oh, so
years,
maybe it
but
must be.
it was the first time I'd heard it in a club myself.
Yeah.
What else have I wrote down here? I don't know. Ed Rush and Optical, Alien Girl was great.
Oh yeah.
Joe, that R-Type. I mean,
Yeah, on Awesome Records.
it's a tune that still gets played today. I mean, that's a sign of how good that tune is. You know.
Yeah.
Andy just played that to absolute death, and the arrangement, the computer game sound. There's things in that arrangement that have still influenced me in what I do today.
Wow,
I
amazing.
love the way the drums cut off and come back on again. There's all stuff like that. That tune, amazing tune. I've got Crystal with a warp drive. You've got a music box on his size. What else I wrote down there? Dillinger. You know, Andy played the O2. I think it was last April last year. I went along, and I was standing with Carl, standing with Dillinger, Phil Lowe and that. And but there was an era where Dillinger just ruled it, man. Any tune he came with and was just absolute killer, man. Such a great artist. And
he's back in the fold again now. His Valve sound system doing Valve nights again.
Yes. No, that's tremendous, isn't it? Building your own rigs and that. I mean, that's impressive. But no, it's a wonderful decade of music. That's taking nothing away from the noughties and modern day. I mean, obviously, the tunes Andy plays in my mind are like fireworks tunes. They've got a huge build up and drop. Just imagining fireworks going off, you know, they're just tremendous drops and stuff. But sometimes for me, it can change too quickly between tunes. And when you had clubs like AWOL and that, where it just used to sit and you used to get in that vibe and it just used to float and you went on a journey, you know. And I was speaking to Moving Fusion today, actually. I said I was going to be speaking to you tonight. I mean, when they brought Turbulence over, Stranger played Turbulence in his set I was talking about.
Yeah.
They loaded that up and it was already done. All me and Andy had to do was just pull the faders around a bit for him, you know, and get it sounding like a Ram thing. And it was tremendous. I loved it straight away. I was like, guys, this is just so good. Anyway, nothing was happening. I said, well, I'm going to put it on Liftin. I love it. And so I cut it. I got it to white label. And by the time it got to white label, it had hit home to everyone else that this is bloody good tune. And Andy went, I want this for Ram. And I was like, okay, go on. And you can have it for Ram. But tremendous talent as well. And it's great they've got back together. They've been doing some DJing. They're doing a set at the XOYO, everybody, 28th of June, if this goes out in time. They're doing back-to-backs, of course. But no, there will come a tune sometimes that just changes the scene, that just knocks everybody over. And right, you know, it's just, that's what music is. It inspires, you know. It's not copying, and it's you know, it's being inspired. I want to make something like that, you know, or and that's what will help morph the scene one way or another.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think that kind of neatly brings us to you know, you getting back into the fold now. And you know,
Well, I'd taken a few years off. As I say, I became a bit detached from it all. I still kept sketching, and I'm still in touch with people that are not necessarily into dance. I'm involved with bands. I used to be in a band years ago. In fact, we're going for a coffee tomorrow. So I've always been scribbling, as I say. But I got a call from Simon, Too Bad Nice, in 2018, something like that. Like, we're going to try and all meet up for a drink uptown. Are you up for it? I was like, yeah, definitely. You know, everyone from Moving Shadow, yeah, love to see everybody and meet people that I've not really ever met. You know, like. So it actually happened around March 2019, and Bill Vega from out of Romford had said, "Yeah, there's a label, Retro 92, wants to put out all the Deep Seven stuff again." I was like, really? He said, "Yeah, there's a bit of a resurgence with the vinyl." Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, you know, bloody good Retro 92. I said, "Yeah, I will. I'll think about it." And around that time, I went to have a drink with Simon and all the old Movie Shadow artists. And I found myself outside having a fag with Harmony. And I was telling them about this idea. I'm going to put out some of these old Deep Seven on Retro 92. He went, "No, I'm doing it already. I'm doing it on Deep Jungle." He'd been going a couple of years by then. He said, "No, there's quite a bit of interest on that older sound, that hardcore when it morphed to jungle and that kind of era." He goes, "If you want, I'll do it for you, or I'll give you advice how to do it yourself." And then I had a chat with Brent Aquasky about it, and he offered his support. And then Bill said, "Look, why don't we do it on Lifting Spirit?" I said, "Well, I haven't got a clue how to cut them these days. You know, I used to organise it back in the day." But he said, "No, I'll do it, you know, sort us out, we'll do us a remix or something." And yeah, okay. Anyway, so that was it. We was like diving into DAT tapes. And the thing was that when making so many tunes, you wouldn't name the tune till much later. So that tape might have some crazy title on it, like Funkatron July 99 version 2. You know what I mean? That wouldn't have a clue. And there's just this bucket of DATs. I said, "Well, I haven't got a clue what any of them is." Yeah, he goes, "Well, give them to me, I'll go through them." And bless his heart, he went through about 200, 300 DATs. And he found nearly everything. And there was a couple of tunes that me and Andy had made that had got forgotten about. He'd be like, what's this tune?" I said, "Oh man, I'm so glad you found that tune." Because the original DAT got corrupted and I thought it had gone from the world, which was Voyage to the Future, which we made shortly after Valley of the Shadows, so it had the same kind of DNA approach. And I was so pleased he found that. And so we started putting out, so let's do Lifting Spirit Reloaded. And so 2019 we started it. And we've done quite a few 12s, as you know.
Yeah.
And people like Chris at Nightfall supporting it, SRD, people like yourself as well, obviously. And it did really, really well. Didn't make a loss on any of them. And it became addictive. What else can I find? Do you know what I mean? And there was tracks like Planet 13, a track called Cascade. I was going to do as Higher Sense for Moving Shadow. Found that, and people was like, you know, it's really good to get these out. You know, got enough. You know, it's going to be appreciated by some people. And it's fantastic. You know, and I obviously got Andy's permission and Shimon and everyone else. But of course, eventually we put out all the Deep Seven stuff. We put out all the best of the Lifting Spirit and ones that hadn't ever come out. And we said, well, let's ask Ram if we can put out some of the early Ram stuff, because I've got all the masters. They're actually my tunes. Do you know what I mean? But Ram got sold to BMG in 2016, but I wasn't around. I was out of the loop. I didn't know. And so I had to get permission from them, and they said yeah, and we worked out the royalty and things. And So off we went again, this time with RAM reloaded. But towards the end of the Lifting Spirit Reloaded, we thought, well, let's put them all on a USB like album thing. So it looks like a CD, but it's actually inside a USB with WAVs and MP3s on. And we're still selling that today over on the Lifting Spirit site. And we've just done the RAM one now as well, RAM Reloaded USB. Because RAM has come... Oh, great! Yes, brilliant.
I've got the Lifting Spirit one somewhere, but Bill just sent me that, so I know where it is.
The thing is, people might have already bought some of them tracks, but at the end of the day, they've all been remastered by Bob. And the one thing that we did get was love for how the records had come out sounding. Bob Mack, SC Mastering, had done such a good job. I mean, some of them had clicks all over it. He got rid of all the clicks because the DATs are 30 years old, you know, and he got them all sounding so much better than when they were originally released. But BMG have apparently at the moment decided to put a pause on any new releases from RAM. I don't know the exact situation. Obviously, I've been speaking to Andrew about it, and he says we're still trying to find out. At the end of the day, BMG are a very big label, and even though the catalogue of RAM is massive, music doesn't earn like what it used to, and it's all about streaming these days. And I can only guess that it isn't really worth their while to keep coming with stuff that is in a niche, and they're focusing more on the larger pop acts, and they've put a pause on RAM releasing anything new. So that may be the last thing for the moment, that RAM Reloaded USB. So
wow.
If anyone wants to support us somehow, then grab the LP, the USB, and we'd be, very thankful for the support. But it's not saying that RAM's come to an end. It might relaunch in some capacity in the future. I've got new acts, new releases coming on Lifting Spirit where they used to be on RAM. The next one on Lifting Spirit is going to be the Siran brothers, who were regulars on RAM, and I'm sure you probably like some of their stuff because they got their foot in the past as well as the present, and got a great sound, Siran. So Siran are coming on board, and that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But no, me and Bone Shaker, we've known each other since we were 15, and we're just having fun at his studio, making tunes and putting sort of a modern type of neuro stuff out at the moment. It's got a bit of a nod to that RAM sound of old as well. So that's out at the moment. We just released one called New World Order, and we're having fun, me and Rob Bone Shaker, just doing what we want, But it's not for anyone coming into the scene. Music is really an advert to being a performer or a DJ of some description. We finished putting out vinyl just at the right time because there were so many people getting involved with making vinyl that the pressing plants couldn't handle it. So they put up their prices by 47%, which pushed up the cost of buying a record. We were selling it for like £12, but these days it's like £20 if you want to buy vinyl. And of course, people are going to be a bit more thoughtful what they're going to buy these days, So, and the wait times was tremendous. You'd cut the record, you wouldn't get test presses till about 3-4 months later. It used to be 2 weeks back in my day, but the wait time was horrendous. In fact, I'm sitting here at Rough and Ruffers studio. I've just come to visit the brothers, and they've done a track which he played the other night called Set 3 and Holding On, which is going to come out of Romford. But I think Chris cut that as coming via Out of Romford on Chris. at Nightfall's site. I mean, that was made a good few months ago now. You know, it's crazy how much time needs to happen for a record to happen. And of course, out of Romford has got a catalogue of stuff lined up to come out as well. But no, we've got some great stuff coming from the brothers here, and they love the old analog tech. As you can see, we've got
nice
6400, S1100, and an S6000 down there. And so I quite enjoy coming around here and pushing some buttons for a change and making it
rather than kicking them out, eh?
Yeah. In fact, I think it's time for a beer. But no, thanks for letting us do the interview. And mainly, I want to say thank you to everyone that's supported RAM. I say it whenever I can, how much me and Andrew are very grateful for all the support over the years. And to everyone that's worked with me over the years, you know, it's been an honour, and I'm hoping that, and there's a few more moons left in my career.
I should bloody hope so.
Even though my name is Grandad Ant now, by the way, I'm Grandad Ant. So bless them. Shout out to Alice and Ella. Bless them.
Oh. Mate,
But,
well, listen,
yeah.
it's
Yes,
truly
thank you, Jay.
No, listen, it's been my absolute honour to have someone like yourself who's contributed so much to the scene and has had so many great stories, and it's been really great to kind of dig into, you know, how it all began before that, right?
One,
you know, what an amazing story. So I really appreciate the time, man, and very much looking forward to seeing what you still got to give us, mate.
Will do. I'll send you over some bits soon, Jay, and thanks for the support and everything.
Anytime.
And yeah, man, we'll have a beer soon.
Sounds good.